CBS Sports has mocked the New York Jets to draft superstar left tackle Will Campbell out of LSU, and we have some other mock drafts to break down. So what's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Jets Digest. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please take a moment, hit the subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. But hopping right into the video here, CBS Sports says Olu Fashanu replaced Tyron Smith at left tackle, and the thought here is that Will Campbell replaces Morgan Moses at right tackle. New York obviously has a quarterback situation to figure out this offseason as well. You know, they just toss that fun fact in there at the end for some reason. But talking about the left tackle prospect that they have the New York Jets taking, it's Will Campbell out of LSU, an elite college left tackle. I want to stress he's an elite college left tackle because a lot of draft insiders project him actually moving to guard at the next level due to his arms being shorter than what you're looking for. But the things he does really well is he's a really polished prospect. His footwork is really good and his hand placement is really good. When he gets his hands on a edge rusher, those guys do not get away from him. Will Campbell, really someone you can trust when it comes to pass protection. And in the run game, he's also someone who you don't want to be anywhere near. A really good potential offensive lineman for the New York Jets. I'm also on the train of people saying that he's going to go to guard, which is also something that the New York Jets need, and something that's important to see when you talk about drafting Will Campbell is the fact that he's so versatile. He is athletic enough where he can move inside, and it shouldn't really be a problem for him. Someone of his size is going to have no problem playing anywhere on the offensive line. Tackle is the more difficult position to play. So usually when someone moves from tackle to guard, even at the next level, it usually goes pretty well, and they're able to handle it seamlessly. The things that he doesn't do as well, he isn't as athletic as the other left tackle in the draft class that we're going to have a really good shot at, who I'm going to talk about in a second. But one of his problems are when he gets set, he doesn't really bend from his knees. He tends to bend from his waist, and that leads to him bending forwards against rushing defensive linemen. And that allows defensive linemen to get him off balance a little bit. So if they hit him with, some defensive linemen will do a push-pull, which is where, of course, they get off the ball, they push on the offensive lineman, and the offensive lineman leans forwards and pushes the defensive lineman back. So sometimes the defensive lineman will want to use the offensive lineman's momentum against him, and he's going to pull the offensive lineman forwards, and the offensive lineman is also pushing in that direction, so he's going to fall over. And Will Campbell, when he bends over at his waist, he's going to be more susceptible to that move should he stay at left tackle. So the left tackle that I would be suggesting to the New York Jets would be Kelvin Banks out of Texas. He's the other surefire first-round pick offensive lineman in this draft. He's out of Texas. Really athletic prospect. He's a guy who is, I would expect, to stay at left tackle at the next level. He's also, just like Will Campbell, has shorter arms, so he's not necessarily definitely a left tackle. However, I keep saying left tackle because that's what you usually draft in the top 10 of the draft, but of course the New York Jets would be looking for that right tackle position. So we are talking about right tackles, of course, but right tackle is the easier spot to play in the NFL because you're not defending the quarterback's blind side. If you have a righty quarterback, which almost every team does other than Atlanta Falcons with Penix and the Miami Dolphins with Tua, their left side is what you want to have blocked up really well, which is where we're going to have Olu. So Kelvin Banks, his super high levels of athleticism makes me confident that he would be able to switch sides to the right side of the line seamlessly in the NFL. I really think that could be the guy. Hopping into, also, that was CBS's projection for the New York Jets right as of now. Looking at who ESPN has the New York Jets selecting, they had Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. The Jets enter this offseason with plenty of holes on the roster after being arguably the most disappointing team of the 2024 season. The lack of depth along the defensive front was exposed all season, and Graham would help fortify it. He makes a lot of sense to pair with Quinnen Williams on the interior. Graham is stout and disruptive force against the inside run and also in the pass rush. His 19 pressures ranked in the top 20 among FBS defensive tackles. So we have another elite prospect, Mason Graham, someone who before the year started, he was in the running to be the first or second player picked off the board. This guy reminds me a lot of Quinnen Williams. He's someone who is really stout. He's only 6'3", but that is big enough as a defensive tackle in the NFL. What's rare about him is how good he is at pass rushing. You don't really see that from the interior defensive lineman, and that's why he's going to go so high in the draft. This is a guy the New York Jets really, really need because the defensive line, we let a lot of guys walk away in free agency this year, and there's no secret that the defensive line struggled. And we saw game after game, guys were just able to run all over us, and we were struggling to get teams off the field on third down, and that was so frustrating to see. Quinnen Williams and Mason Graham would be a tremendous 1-2 punch at defensive tackle. They would immediately become the best defensive tackle duo in the league. Right now I'm thinking of who would even be better. If you remember the Giants, either last year or 2 years ago when they had Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence, that was an elite tackle combo. The New York Jets could look a lot like that. These guys, it could be Quinnen Williams, defensive team, first team All-Pro defensive tackle, and Mason Graham could be the second team defensive tackle. They can be really, really scary as a duo. Mason Graham, if you're going to take a defensive tackle in the draft this year, this is your guy. He is definitely the best defensive tackle. The second defensive tackle, a lot of guys have his teammate Kenneth Grant. Some guys have Deion Walker out of Kentucky. Deion Walker is a little bit more of a zero tech, a nose tackle. He would be lining up right over the football instead of on the inside shoulder of the guard. Right now, the New York Jets run a 3-4 defense. A 4-3 defense, which is what their personnel is set up to play. So you would think that they're going to hire a coach who is able to also play a 4-3 defense, and Mason Graham would be his guy. However, don't forget that name, Deion Walker, because if we're taking a defensive tackle, we wouldn't take him in the top 10, but he could be a trade down option if the coach we bring in wants to play a 3-4 defense. He would be our nose tackle. Hopping into our final mock draft suggestion that we're going over in this video was Bleacher Reports. They said, in the case of the Jets' aging roster, Abdul Carter out of Penn State would bring as much upside as any prospect in this class. His skill set portends a potential game wrecker as a pass rusher. He's still raw, and his technique needs work, but the Nittany Lions still managed to lead the Big Ten with 11 sacks and made 22 tackles for a loss this season. So, Abdul Carter. If you look at the jersey, you look at the number, you might be reminded of Micah Parsons. If you watch any Penn State games, you will also be reminded of Micah Parsons because Abdul Carter plays just like him. This guy is a absolute monster. He played off-ball linebacker for his freshman year and sophomore year at Penn State. Of course, didn't get on the field a ton as a freshman because it's Penn State football. They got dogs there. This year, as a true junior, almost full-time edge rusher, and he has really, really looked amazing. He is like 6'5", almost 260 pounds. This is a monster. Right now, he is my number 2 ranked player on my big board. Mel Kiper of ESPN, if you respect his opinions, also has Abdul Carter as number 2. He's been one of my guys throughout this entire year because I see the height, the weight, and the speed. This guy is so heavy but does not sacrifice any speed on the football field. If you've been watching the college football playoffs, yes, he just lost this weekend, but he was injured, and even with the injury, looked phenomenal against Notre Dame, a team that's known for putting out elite offensive line talent every single season. He is 6'5", but still, his bend is elite. He's always ducking under those offensive linemen. He's tough to get hands on him, and when you do get hands on him, he's going to get you off of him. He tracks down running backs in the second level. Really, really fast, really, really athletic, and he's still not, just like we just read in the Bleacher report, he's still not a finished product, and he was still the Big Ten sack leader. This guy could be an absolute monster. If he's there at 7 for the Jets, I think he is the number 1 guy that I want, but I don't think he's going to fall that far because edge rushers do not last long at all in the NFL draft. This guy is someone that pretty much every team could use. So, talking more generally about this draft, the Jets have the 7th pick. There are only about 5 or 6 elite blue chip level prospects in this draft class. And then you have the 2 quarterbacks as well, who we can project going above the New York Jets. So that's going to push down the better players. So the New York Jets, they're going to get a shot at a really, really good player. Whether it's the guy they want or a position of need, we can't, unless we trade up, we're not going to be able to pick that. They're going to be at the mercy of the board, but you're going to hear from a lot of draft analysts that this is a weak draft, and the first round does not have a lot of players with a first round draft grade on them. That does not affect the New York Jets because we are picking in the range that is elite players. Every single year, when you're an elite player, when someone calls a guy a blue chip prospect, they're a blue chip prospect in any draft class. And the New York Jets at 7, as long as the quarterbacks go in the top 5 and push the blue chip prospects down, their Jets are going to get beastly players, blue chip prospect guys. The important thing is the Jets cannot draft for need this year. They just got to take the best guy available because there's only going to be probably one guy, maybe if we're lucky, 2 guys from that tier of blue chip guys. Just want to address one thing with a guy who's definitely a blue chip talent, Malachi Starks. I don't think 7th overall, for me, that's too high to draft a safety. But please leave a comment if you want to still see Malachi Starks without a trade down at 7. And WillCampbell, if the plan with WillCampbell was to move him to guard, it does not make sense to draft him at 8. So if the New York Jets drafted him at 8, that could show us that they want to keep him at a tackle. However, we just saw 2 years ago, well, I guess 2025 now, so 3 years ago, the Tennessee Titans took Peter Skoronski in the first round. He was a tackle. They moved him to guard. That was 2 years ago. The Will McDonald year is when they took Peter Skoronski in the top 10, was a left tackle at Northwestern, really good at Northwestern, but moved to guard in the NFL because of the concerns with his arm length. That's the same thing with WillCampbell. So please, guys, leave a comment below who you want to see the New York Jets draft at 7, or if you want the Jets to trade down, and if you want them to trade down, what range are you targeting of draft picks, and what do you want to see them get back in that trade down? And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video, hit the subscribe button if you're not already, and as always, go Jets.